Welcome to the new edition of the ABBA League magazine. In the 21st round, Igokea faced Olympia as they desperately wanted to arrest a run of 6 straight defeats. Krka was the next team in line to try to topple still undefeated Crvena Zvezda. Tensions ran high as always in the Zagreb derby between Cedevita and Cibona. And of course, at the end of the show, we will show you the best 5 actions of the round. But first the news: Đorđe Gagić left Partizan as the club was unable to pay the players' salaries. 24-year-old centre was in the middle of his best season with the black and white, as he averaged almost 10 points in the 17 minutes he played on average. That said, the club from Belgrade was quick to find a replacement for Gagić as they acquire Božo Đumić from Vojvodina. The former junior national team player signed a 2.5-year with Partizan. After being loaned to Kecskemét, Miljan Rakić returns to Szolnok. The 28-year-old playmaker had a good last season with the Hungarian champions as he averaged 5 points in the 24 games he featured in. After losing a lot of their roster, Levski finally brought in 3 players, and they are the 34-year-old former Bulgaria national team player Filip Videno, another veteran, the 37-year-old Vasko Evtimov, as Videno already has some experience in playing in the ABBA League. And the last one is the 32-year-old American Jimmy Hunt, who hasn't played much in the 2 seasons, but has some experience with the region as he spent 2 years in the Slovenian outfit of Senčur. And Igokea and Nikola Dragovic decided to part ways as the latter got an interesting offer from abroad. He averaged almost 9 points in the 19 games he featured in for the Bosnia and Herzegovina champion. And last but not least, after almost 5 years spent in Ljubljana, Sasu Salin is leaving Union Olimpija as he gets a strong offer from abroad. This year, Salin averaged almost 10 points in the Eurocup, while in the ABBA League he was able to contribute 7.4 points per game. We start with the highlights in Hungary, where the Hungarian champion was forced to face Megalex without the help of their centre Gergely Somogy. But on the other side, Miljan Rakić was already ready to face battle. The guests were without Dejan Musli and Andrija Bojic as the duo was fighting the flu. Michael Lee was the one to open the score for the home team, and for the visitors, it was Marko Kešel. The home team was in front by 5 points when Teddy Gibson managed to get himself on the score sheet. And that was then followed by a first lead for the guests as Nenad Miljenovic made it 14-12. Szolnok was soon back in front as Lazaric Jones scored 5 in a row, but then Nikola Jokic at the other end scored the next 7 points to put Mega back in front by 22-20. The visitors were still in front after the first 10 minutes, with Jones making it 24-22. Jones had a fine game, finishing it of 18 points and 10 assists. The home team then opened the second period well as they scored 4 times from 3, and that from 4 different players, and Szolnok was in front by 10 with things looking good for them. But instead, just a bit later, it was Megalex who scored the next 13 points to reclaim the lead of 47-45. Still, it was Szolnok who finished ahead after the first 20 minutes. It was 49-47. Teddy Gibson was then quick to score twice after the interval to give his team the lead of 55-51, but by the time Radovan Djokovic scored 5 in a row, the score was equal to 62. Nothing between those two after 30 minutes of play as Vojvoda made equal to 64. He was also the home team's best scorer in the end with 20 points to his name. At the start of the last quarter, the game's best scorer Nikola Jokic scored 3 out of his 23 altogether to put Mega in front by 3. But that prompted an immediate response by the home team as they managed to score 10 consecutive points and establish a 7-point lead. After that, they managed to score twice more from distance and set a new highest lead of the match of 12 points just at the right moment, and the winner was by this decided. It finished with 88-77 for the Hungarians with a record percentage for 3 as they were 48% successful in the 14 shots they made from distance. 1,600 people saw Budućnost take on Zadar in their Morača Hall. The Dalmatians were plagued by injury problems as James Florence, Ive Ivanov, Lovre Basic and Juraj Segaric were all missing. Vladimir Dasic got the things underway, and for the visiting team it was Domagoj Bošnjak. Budućnost was soon in front by 12-5 as they were twice precise from distance. Then Bojan Subotic replaced Vladimir Dasic and was able to make an instant impact as he put Budućnost 5 points to the good. But after that it was Josip Sobin's turn to play well as he was able to score 10 points in the first period and was the main force behind Zadar closing the gap to 2. That was also the margin come the end of the first period. The young Ivan Vraneš was causing trouble at the start of the second one and quickly drove through to equal the score to 24, which forced the home team's coach to take an early timeout. Then it was Filip Kraljevic who first blocked Vitkovac's shot and then scored to give Zadar their first lead of 28-26. Budućnost then managed to reply with a run of 9-3 to retake the lead of 35-31, but having said that, the Dalmatians did manage to stay on equal terms after the first 20 minutes. J.R. Reynolds started the third period well, scoring twice as Budućnost was in front by 3, and then Ivan Paunic scored twice in a row to give Budućnost a 7-point lead. In the end, he was the game's best scorer with 20 points to his name. When Zadar hit twice from distance, they were still trailing the hosts by 5 points, and after that, Omar Cook assisted Bojan Subotic well as the latter was able to score and draw a foul as well, and Budućnost was nurturing a double-digit lead for the first time in the match. The home team was in front by 13 after 30 minutes of play, which was their highest advantage too. But then Zadar scored 10 consecutive points at the start of the last quarter, and by the time Boris Barat scored 5 in a row, the visitors has closed the gap to just 3, as it took nearly 5 minutes for Budućnost to get going in the last period when Omar Cook then finally broke the deadlock with a 3. Some 3 minutes before time, Josip Sobin managed to get Zadar within just 2 points, but then it had all stopped for Zadar. They had dropped to a hold and hadn't scored until the end of the match. Vitkovac put Budućnost 6 points in front with less than 2 minutes to go, and the winner was decided 40 seconds from time when Reynolds made it 71-63, and that was also the final score in Podgorica. Igor Kea had suffered 6 straight defeats prior to taking on Union Olimpija, who had arrived on the back of 3 consecutive wins. Before the match, both teams had some injury concerns. Klemen Prepelic was the one to get things going in this one with a 3, and for the home team it was Duško Bunic. Igor Kea was in front for the first time after Brady Heslip scored 5 in a row to make it 7-5. The home team was already in front by 15-9 when the Canadian national team player scored twice from distance, and soon after that Igor Kea had a 7-point advantage when Marko Čakarević scored 4 in a row. The first period ended with Igor Kea in front by 9 points after Duško Bunic was successful. Alen Omic opened the second quarter well, scoring 4 points and closing the gap to 5. A bit after that, Olimpija was only trailing by a single point when Paolo Marinelli scored for 3 and rounded up an 8-0 parcel for the visitors. Soon after that, the guests were in front when Prepelic scored 5 in a row. Eventually, he was the game's best scorer with 24 points, to which he also added 7 assists. Igor Kea was only able to score once from open play in the second part of the second period, so it wasn't a real surprise. Olimpija would finish the first half in front, albeit by only 3 points. It was 43-40 after the first 20 minutes. Jonathan Jones hadn't played at all in the first half, so this were his first points of the game as he closed the gap to just a point. But Olimpija was soon 5 points to the good again when Omic scored twice. That prompted a response from the home team, who could then score twice from distance to reclaim the lead. Towards the end of the third period, Igor Kea managed to add 2 more 3-pointers as Branko Jorovic made sure they would stay in front before entering the last 10 minutes of the match. The last quarter started with Đorđe Milošević getting lucky from an impossible position, and Igor Kea had the lead of 3 points. Brady Heslip was having an excellent display as he hit 6 times from distance from only 12 attempts. He finished the game on 32 points. After that, Alenomic managed to block Čakarevic's attempt, and the teams were only separated by a single point before the same player made amends and put his team 5 points in front a little over a minute before time. Gregor Hrovat then had the chance to equal the score to 80 with only 15 seconds remaining on the clock, but had missed an open shot for 3, and the home team was able to take the win home from the free throw line. It was their first after almost 2 months, and they got there predominantly by scoring 10 times from distance. Krka had notched up 4 successive wins before taking on the last undefeated team of the league, Crvena Zvezda. Both teams had some injury woes, but Krka seemed to have the tougher job as they only had 7 senior players at their disposal. Marcus Williams was the first player to score in this game, and for the home team it was Chris Booker who scored the first 7 points, in fact, as he was causing Boban Marjanovic much trouble. Krka took the lead of 14-5 after scoring 9 unanswered points. But that didn't stop them either from finishing the first period on a high, as eventually their partial got stretched to 18-3, and after Booker secured his 11th point already, the team from Novo Mesto were already 15 points to the good. First period ended with 25-13, and at the start of the second quarter, Crvena Zvezda was quick to close the gap to under 10. But then Marcus Williams received a technical foul, which allowed the home team to get back to an 11-point lead when Booker scored 3 of his 18. That prompted a good response from the leading team in the league, as they scored 9 consecutive points to reduce the deficit to just 2, as Jenkins made it 30-28. And then Alexis Van Mene decided to try for 3 for the first time this season and was successful, and by that he started another run of 10 unanswered points by the hosts, after which the result stood at 40-28. Luka Mitrovic then set the result after the first half, which ended with Krka in front by 41-32. Right after the interval, Marcus Williams was able to score for 3 for the second time and closing the gap to just 4 points, but Krka responded readily, scored the next 7 points, and the Slovenian champion was soon back to an 11-point advantage. Branko Lazic then made sure the hosts wouldn't get too far, as he was able to get his team within 6 points. And then they got further reduced to 5 before entering the last 10 minutes of the game, which promised to be decisive. The first act of the last period was Nikola Kalinic scoring for 3 to close the gap to just 2 points, but then Zvezda's coach received his second technical foul and was expelled from the match, as Velibor Radovic was then handed over the helm till the end of the game. Right after that, Jaka Blažić was able to score from distance and close the gap to a single point, but that prompted Malcolm Armstead to step in front, score twice from distance and secure further breathing space for the home team. Alexis Van Mene then followed his cue, scored twice and put his team 9 points in front. Jasmin Hukic had a great performance, scoring this season high of 20 points. And when he scored the last 5, he rounded up a 14-1 partial for the home team, thus deciding the winner, as Krka had a 15-point advantage less than 2 minutes before the end of the game. A great scalp from the Slovenian champion, which now takes their tally to 5 straight victories. This, of course, also marks the end of Zvezda's incredible run of 20 successive wins. No Ukic, Ramljak or Mario Delaš for Cedevita, as they hosted their city rival in the Zagreb derby, with Cibona missing Marko Jagodić-Kuriđa and Vlado Ilijevski. Fran Pilepic was the first player to score in this one, and for Cibona it was Ivan Ciriščević. Eventually he had a good night with a record-breaking home tally of 20. Cibona was in front by 6-2 when the young Andrea Žižić scored twice, but then Cedevita responded by scoring 11 successive points to take the lead of 13-6. They hadn't stopped there either, and when Tomislav Zupčić scored for 3, they were already in front by 23-8 after an incredible 21-2 partial. Still, Cibona managed to close the gap a bit come the end of the first period, which ended with 28-17. Soon in the second quarter, Nik Slavica stole the ball and closed the gap to 31-23, but at the other end, Miro Bilan was making his experience count, as he made sure Cedevita was still nurturing a double-digit lead. Then a much better display from the reigning champion, who managed to steal the lead away from Cedevita when Filip Krušlin rounded up a 13-0 run by the visitors to make it 38-36. Still, Cedevita was able to finish the half on a high with a 9-1 partial and close the first 20 minutes in front by 45-39. At the start of the second half, Cibona scored 8 unanswered points as Krušlin was able to give the lead back to the defending champion. And after that, Andrea Žižić scored from a counter-attack, and Cibona had a 4-point lead, which was also their highest of the game. Then Cedevita scored 7 in a row to reclaim the lead of 59-56 after Fran Pilepic was successful from distance. Cedevita with a better display towards the end of the third period, after which they were in front by 6 points. It was 65-59 after 30 minutes of play. At the start of the last period, Pilepic managed to score from a difficult position to give Cedevita a 7-point margin, but soon after that Cibona was again in front as Siriščević scored to make it 74-73. The same player then scored 5 points in a row, and less than 2 minutes before time, Cibona was in front by 79-76, with Siriščević scoring 15 of his 22 points in the last quarter alone. Little over a minute to go, Filip Krušlin missed both times from the free throw line, while at the other end Nemanja Gordic made sure the finish of the game would be dramatic. 28 seconds from time, Cedevita managed to get in front as Ante Dela scored his only 3-pointer at just the right time. Cibona had one last chance to turn it around in the last offense, but 4 seconds before the end, Dominic Maura missed his shot. 3 seconds remain on the clock, and Cedevita made a mistake from the outline, which enabled Cibona to push for one last time, but Krušlin missed his 3-pointer, which would have given them the win, and in the end it was the home team who managed to win. 6,500 people turn up in the Pioneer Hall to see Partizan aim for their 8th win on the trot, and they had a good chance of doing so, as the team they faced was the worst of the league, with Levski suffering 18 straight defeats. They did have 2 new players eligible before this one, as Filip Videno and Jimmy Hunt were both able to play for their new club. The Bulgarians were the first one to score in this match, as Angelo scored for 3, and for the home team it was Milan Mačvan. He was also behind Partizan's first lead of the game as he made it 10-5, but after that the visitors started a barrage of threes as they scored 5 from the 6 attempts and took the lead of 20-14 as Videno rounded up a run of 15-4 for the Bulgarians. That prompted a response from Partizan, and after 4 points from Boris Dalot, the home team had equalled the score to 22, and that was also the result after the first 10 minutes. Soon in the second period, Partizan was 4 points to the good as Mihailo Andrić rounded up a 14-4 partial for the home team. It was the start of better things to come for the black and white, as when Milenko Tepic managed to get himself on the score sheet, they were already 11 points in front. Dejan Karamfilov then managed to score for the first time in the game and closed the gap to 7 points. The visitors further reduced the deficit to 5 points when Simeonov was successful, but the margin was 7 points after the first half, with Sasha Pavlovic setting the score of 46-39 after the first 20 minutes. Right after the interval, Partizan equalled their highest lead of 11 points through Nemanja Bezbradica, as it took more than 2 minutes for the Bulgarians to get going in the third quarter, when Videno again scored another 3. Eventually he was the game's best scorer with 25 points to his name. But soon Partizan was in front by 13 for the first time in the match as Edo Muric scored from distance. That got followed by another 2 3-pointers from the visitors, who were back to a single-digit deficit after Angelo scored his 3rd of the match. It was 68-58 for Partizan before the last 10 minutes of the game. Again, Partizan opened the quarter well, with Muric scoring twice in a row to give them the lead of 16 points, which forced Levski's coach Titi Papazo to take an early timeout. It didn't change things much though, as right after it, Pavlovic scored for 3 to give Partizan a new highest lead of 19 points. The visitors were having a hard time following Partizan's high-tempo game, as they could only rely on 7 players in this game, and some 5 minutes before the end of the game, the home team was already 23 points to the good. After Pavlovic made it plus 25 for Partizan, Duško Vujošević decided to send in a couple of inexperienced youngsters, as he was obvious as it was obvious Levski wouldn't come back from this. So the young Turk Yanis Kuzeoglu scored his first points of the season. This game ended with 94-66. Metalac had lost 2 consecutive home games prior to taking on MZT Skopje. Had a good motive to win in Valjevo, as Igokea had pushed them to 13 after beating Olympia in Laktashi. Samardžiski got things going for the visitors, and for the home team it was Nikola Malešević. Nemanja Protic contributed 7 points in this early stage, as Metalac was pulling away to a 14-9 lead. But Samardžiski recognized the danger and quickly closed the gap back to just a point. Soon after that, Metalac was 6 points in front, as Nikola Otašević scored his first shot from distance, and the margin between the teams was 4 points after the first 10 minutes, in which Predrag Samardžiski was the last player to score in it. Soon in the second period, Metalac was in front by 8 points for the first time, as Nemanja Todorović was next in line for the home team to score for 3. But that prompted a response from the Macedonians, as they managed to equal the score to 30 when Kirill Nikolovski scored his first and only points of the game. It was a good run by the Macedonian champion, after which they had opened up a 6-point lead. After a 15-1 partial, they were in front by 6 after the first 20 minutes of the game. Metalac then opened the second half well, as they were quick to reclaim the lead after Protic scored 2 consecutive 3-pointers to make it 42-39, but soon after that only a point separated the teams when Šehović was precise from distance. Stefan Sinovic was the last player to score in the third period, which ended with both teams on 53 points. The Macedonians opened the last period well, as Samardžiski was continuing his good display, as he made it 57-53. Eventually he was the game's best scorer with 20 points and also as many as 20 rebounds as well. The home team reacted, and when Nikola Jevtović scored, they were in front by 3 points. The gap was 2 when Stefan Sinovic scored twice in a row and made sure MZT was still in it. Just 13 seconds from time, Uroš Lučić scored an all-important 3-pointer to equal the score back to 67, but then Nemanja Protic scored a winning basket just a second before time and made sure Metalac wouldn't lose for the third time running in front of their passionate crowd, as then Simonovski missed the visitors' last-ditch attempt, and that meant that Metalac won. So, Solnok managed to get a win over Megalex. Budućnost needed a good second-half effort to break Zadar in Podgorica. Igokea arrested the fall of 6 successive defeats against Olympia. Cedevita, the winner of the Croatian derby. No trouble for Partizan against Levski, and of course the result of the round must be Krka ending Crvena Zvezda's amazing run of 20 straight victories. In spite of that first defeat of the season, Crvena Zvezda firmly remains in the saddle, and there are also no changes in the next 3 positions. Krka now catches up with Olympia while things remain crowded in the middle of the table. Igokea escaped that 13th spot, which is now occupied by MZT. Far away from anybody else is Levski, who remains rooted to the bottom. Nikola Jokic is again the most valuable player of the round, as the still 19-year-old player reaches a playing index of 37. He played 36 minutes in the game against Solnok and scored 27 points in that time. He also recorded 15 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal and a block in that time. And now let's take a look at the best 5 actions of this, the 21st round. At number 5 we have this nice collective action from Partizan, who was concluded by Nikola Milutino with a dunk. At number 4, Đorđe Milošević first receiving a block and then somehow making it through the basket. At number 3, again we have Partizan's action. It was this slam dunk by Eda Muric, who was also responsible for stealing the ball in the first place. Second best action comes from the game from Igor Kea in Olympia. It is this block from Alen Omic. And our first pick of this round is this winning basket from Nemanja Protic, who eventually gave the win to Metalac, and it was an important one as well. So how about the 22nd round? Missed out on Friday with a match between Zadar and Solnog. Cibona faces Partizan in the first encounter on Saturday, followed by Megalex against high-flying Krka. Sunday night promises to be a highlight as Olympia and Budućnost cross swords, and then the derby game on Monday with Crvena Zvezda hosting Cedevita in Belgrade. And that's all for today. Join us again next time. Until then, it's bye-bye from us.
Liga!